All right. And on our bonus Saturday SNAP meeting, we are delighted that Michael Ross, who expat, I guess you call yourself now,
I
uh,
call myself an immigrant, actually.
I bet.
moved moved to France with his equally artistic wife Liz, who we hope is able to join us too. And he's going to talk to us today about his photographic journey. And he's a musician that got into photography. I'll let him give us just a little bit of the background here. So, but welcome, Michael. We are really glad to hear from you and look forward to seeing all of the photos you pulled together.
Well, thanks, Emily. Thanks so much for setting this up, and thanks to Snap for agreeing to do it. I was just thrilled when you asked me to do it. If nothing else, whether it happened or not, it made me start thinking about things, and which is the hardest part for me of photography. Taking the pictures is easy. Editing, processing is a joy. You have to be careful about using editing because editing can be processing or culling. And processing, I love doing, but editing, as they say, or culling the stuff, picking the right photos, that's really difficult. And it got me to start doing that, and it was great. So I'm so happy to be able to be here and to do it. And I'm glad it all came together. So yeah, as you said, I'm a recovering musician, and I started out, in my youth as a musician, but I also was an artist back then. I was into art, and I decided in my 20s if I was going to do one, really, I had to choose and to pursue one. And being in my 20s, I thought music would be the one to pursue. Art was something I could do later. Hauling an 85-pound guitar amplifier up 5 flights of stairs was probably not something I would want to do later. So I concentrated on music for years. And the only photographs I took was at one point I had an iPod. If you remember those, they were like iPhones, but they did not, you couldn't make phone calls with them, but it did pretty much everything else, music, photographs, things like that. I took some photographs with that, played around with some apps, had some fun. But then in 2005, my brother died, and he left me his little Panasonic point and shoot. It was the DMC LC33, which I didn't discover till later that actually is a partnership with Leica. So it was actually a good little point and shoot camera. And aside from the fact that I had no idea how to use it, and to the point where half my photos came out blue because I didn't know, I inadvertently changed the light balance by mistake. Um, but I took it anyway. I was on a press junket to Taiwan and Japan. I was offered that and went and took the camera. And that's in Taiwan. I guess I took that from the bus going to the hotel, which kind of is interesting because it presaged many years of enjoying shooting from moving vehicles, whether trains or cars. And I have a whole bunch of photos like that that I'm not showing now just because we don't have enough time. But I find it really exciting. It's kind of like being a Native American in the old days on a horse hunting buffalo, and just trying to capture the shot is a lot of fun. But this was in Taiwan. Let's see if this will work. Yeah. So this is also in Taiwan at the market. It's one of the earliest color shots I took. It's blown out. There's nothing technically great about it, but I just love the shot. And so I had it framed and have it in my room here. That one came out a little better. This was in Japan. There's something about Japanese translations into English that can be really amusing, and this was one of them. And I like taking pictures of just ironic signage or amusing signage. Um, this was uh, this was also in Japan. I think it's in Kyoto. And it just like it was kind of a luck picture that, where I somehow got the leading lines thing happening, but I had no idea what I was doing. It just came out nicely. I had to put a frame on it because against the black background, the black triangle on the right disappeared. They look like car wheels, but I don't think they are. I think they're from the factory in Taiwan that we were taken to. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Japanese Provoke mo movement or Daido Maruyama, but I had no idea of them at the time, but this photograph came out kind of looking like that, and I processed it to look more like that later. They work in high contrast, black and white and grainy look that just I love the look, and I've done other photos that push in that direction without I'm trying to push in that direction without totally aping it. The next time, so I came back to the United States. We were just there for 5 days and went back to music, basically, and music writing, and didn't really take the camera out again until 2010, I think this was, when we went down to the Gay Pride Parade in New York. And I took it out for that because it just, it was such amazing subject matter and
Wow.
managed to get a few good photos there. Then back up by our place in Washington Heights, every year they'd have a Renaissance fair. And so I took it out there and took some pictures. I still, keep in mind, I had no idea what I was doing. I mean, I was like just basically it's a point and shoot. I pointed and shot. That was it. But in and amongst there, in amongst dozens of terrible photos, a couple came out that I might be able to use someday. The next step was, let me just check. Okay, so in 2011, Liz bought a Canon PowerShot, which is the model S95. And we were about to go to a trip to England and France. And so I got jealous and I bought one too. And so we both took our Canons. And this is one of the first pictures I've taken of like trees, which has become a theme, preferably without leaves in my photography. There's Liz as a spy in England. There's another kind of ironic um, sign. You can see me in the picture. That was a friend of mine was teaching at a university in London. It was your classic starburst, of which I knew nothing. It just was pure luck. But that's what they call the gherkin in London. And this is back in Nashville with the Canon, and with that kind of light, I was just able to get a really good picture, really crisp or relatively crisp, and around this time, we started taking lessons. I don't know if anybody knows John Chastain down at the factory. I don't know if he still has it, but he had a gallery and a photographic printing business there for years. And we took some lessons with him. He did some classes. So we finally started, this may have been after I finally started to vaguely learn how to shoot manually and learn how to use the camera. But in 2019, when we went back to London, we bought iPhone 10s at some point in there, and the camera on that was as good as the Canon point and shoot. So we just brought the iPhone. And this is a street shot I like that I got amongst many terrible shots in London. Because keep in mind, I still had pretty much no idea what I was doing. This was in Oxford. So now we get into around 2018. This is where some of my music background came in. I was I had started a website, a webzine kind of called guitarmoderne.com where hello? I interviewed guitarists and wrote about modern guitar playing, kind of avant-garde and modern guitar playing. And interestingly, Ralph Gibson, who you may or may not have heard of, who is one of the more famous photographers in the world, is a guitar player and had discovered the site through Andy Summers, the Police guitar player, who they did a book together. And Andy's a photographer. I've interviewed him and talked to him about guitar and photography. And when we went up to New York, I think it was 2018 or 2019, I went to Ralph's studio and he was nice enough to host me at the studio. And I told him I was thinking about getting more serious about photography. And he said, go out and buy a Leica and a 50 mm lens and shoot with just a 50 mm lens for 2 years, which is advice he pretty much gives everyone. But advice I pretty much followed. We had a friend who worked at Leica New York, and he was able to hook me up with a used SL 601 and a 50 mm Sumaret for, something less than the price of a new car. And and I started using it. But then COVID hit, 2019, just about the time I started using it. Actually, I didn't buy it, I think, till 2021, during COVID. And I decided, I can't go anywhere. I can't play music anymore at this point. So maybe it's time to buckle down with the photography. And we started taking pictures around the neighborhood. And this was a spider we named Bettina. And we'd see her every day on our walks around Lenox Village. And so I took a picture of her and just started to learn how to use the camera. I took a lot of pictures of clouds. If you're familiar with Stieglitz's concept of clouds is equivalence, somehow referring to the sublime and things like that. But I mean, I think we've all looked at clouds and thought something special. So I took a lot of pictures of clouds. I also took a lot of pictures inside the house where we spent a lot of time. And these curtains attracted me initially for the texture. But I hadn't really learned to use color yet. Color is way harder than black and white for me in terms of evoking emotion with color, the way you can with black and white or the way I can with black and white. Excuse me. But I've re-edited this recently and gotten closer to the feeling that I was trying to get from it. The light had the light and the texture, but getting the color right was only something I was able to do recently. That's one of the first pictures I took with the Leica, and all of a sudden it's a lot clearer and a lot more clarity, but it's still not a great picture. We went out to one of the places we did go to was because it was outdoors, was a petting zoo or petting farm. This picture, for some reason, is bigger than it's supposed to be. But anyway, that's Liz petting a horse. And I started, getting into all the principles of photography. I got down on the floor back when it was easier for me to get down on the floor and get back up, and trying different angles and different depths of field. Like this was neighbor's fence and bulbs, lights. This was Liz reaching out to Magnolia. I asked her, I think, to put her hand in the picture to get a sense of scale because it was a particularly small magnolia flower. But I think this might have been in one of the snap shows, if I'm not mistaken. I love this picture. And I took pictures, lots of pictures of hydrangeas and flowers. We had a lot of hydrangeas, but most of them I wasn't crazy about. But I gravitated towards dead and dying flowers for the most part because I just find them texturally more interesting and, kind of metaphysically more interesting, I guess, on some level. And regular flowers have been photographed so many times, and I just couldn't find a personal way into them. Obviously, you do still lifes when you're stuck in the house, and so I did a still life. The box with the little man on it is a package of condoms I picked up in Japan. It's red. But I just love their packaging. I had no use for the condoms, but I love that package. and started experimenting with some out of focus things during the winter and snow and rain. The magnolias were fantastic. We were lucky to have two or three or four trees in Lenox Village, and the smell and just the stages of their life were so interesting. And the seed pods, they turn into these brown crusty things that were worthy of photography. The little pistils or stamens, which in color they'd have little red tips like matchsticks. But I just like this picture in black and white. We also got some serious mushrooms one year, and this is a good example of why having a good camera is a good idea, because it was probably with the 50 mil, yeah, at 50 millimeter on the Leica, and didn't. You can't get this close with that camera with that lens. I probably shot this just standing up, but because it's such a great sensor and a great lens, I was able to crop in this far and still maintain detail. Um, Also, I started ordering and buying photography books because it's nice to know what the bar is for one thing, and what you like and what you don't like, and also what people have done, so you don't spend too much time, or I don't want to spend too much time reinventing the wheel. So, in trying to find a voice, of my own. I want to see what other people do. I knew a guitar player in New York who he was a great guitar player. When he would see other great guitar players, he would say, "Great, that's something else I don't have to do because they're doing it already." And so it kind of narrows the field. You start honing in on, okay, what of my stuff doesn't look like this? And I'm still working on that. I'm not there yet, but you may know a lot of those photographers. Harry Callahan, I relate to very strongly. Um, Roger Ballin, if you don't know him, is a really demented South African photographer who does these amazing pictures with people, rats, broken walls, drawings on the walls, and all that sort of stuff. It's really great. And Julie Blackman, if you don't know her, the book on the bottom does pictures of her kids and the neighbors' kids in the suburbs, but she stages them. They're not candid pictures. And she stages them in such a way that they look just a little off. Something's just a little weird about them, and they're fantastic. So one of the first projects that I consciously started working on was something called human nature. Liz suggested I just call it human/nature, which I think works. And the relationship between man and nature is something that has been covered by so many photographers and still being covered by so many photographers to this day. My take on it, or my way into it, is kind of um, juxtaposing the structure of man-made objects and kind of the chaos of more natural things, and trying to get the rub going in there. And it's like what I like in art in general is tension and release, or as a bass player friend of mine used to call it, the squeezing and the letting go. And so I think this one embodies that to a certain extent. Also, maybe echoing a little bit of Edward Hopper painting. Some people might know this on Nolensville Road, this church, if it's still there, who knows? They may have sold out. But if you're talking about clouds as the sublime, and the church, which tries to deal with some sort of sublime, I think. This is in Nîmes, where we live now. Every year they put up a Ferris
Ooh,
wheel at Christmas, and in this, so
love
this
that.
Ferris, and thank you, the Ferris wheel in the background. This is Lenox Village. It's more mundane, but it's it still, I think, shows the man-made mailboxes versus the trees. It's a work in progress, and all photographers have done things like this for 20,000 photos. They pick out the ones that work for a book. So I'm still working on it. I don't have 20 years, so I got to work fast. But I'm still working on it. I think this might have been in a show in Nashville, also. That's a parking lot at Old Hickory in Nolensville. This is a park we used to walk in with our friends. I tend to like my parks paved, so that I don't have to look at my feet, looking out for rocks and roots. This picture was in a magazine called Shots. They take open entries, and this one made one of their things. I forgot what the theme was, but it could easily fit into my human nature theme. Or well, this is a good place to talk about James Mayer, who Emily introduced me to, and who I think has spoken to you folks. He was the first mentorship thing I did, and he was great. I mean, he started by showing me how cropping things makes such a difference. And he, did a couple of quick crops, and it was like, oh my God, that's so much better. But he also mentioned, I showed him some of the childhood project I'm working on, and he showed me that something like this could go into that project, that it doesn't have to be literal. It can be metaphorical and unconscious and all sorts of things. So it was just food for thought. And I've since seen that in so many photographers' work, where they have a nominal project and you look at it and you go, well, how does this relate? But if you think about it, sometimes it does, and sometimes I go, I don't know how this relates, but it doesn't have to. That was the important message. So the next project was Nolensville Road. I thought it would be nice to chronicle Nolensville Road, because I thought, well, this is the type of thing with development that's going to disappear. And apparently south of Lenox Village, south of Old Hickory, it's changed massively. But when we were back there in 22 or 23 to ship our stuff over, they between Old Hickory and Nashville didn't seem to have changed that much. I don't know if it's changed even more in the last couple of years. But I just went up and down. It was another great thing to do during COVID. I didn't have to be around anybody. I just had to make sure I didn't get run over trying to get these pictures. That's the Tusculum Bowling Alley. I don't know if that's still there. One of the many taco places along Nolensville, and yet people still line up at Taco Bell, something I will never understand.
Mhm.
This was further north. I just love the colors, and the church next to the Wings place, and another taqueria. This is not technically on, well, it's not on Nolensville. It's near it. It's on Old Hickory, and it's a mini golf course that we never actually got to play at, but I went one morning before they opened and could just go right in and took this picture, just because it seems, now in retrospect, it seems very much like a William Eggleston picture. I don't know if this is still on Nolensville. I hope it is. I like this one because he looks like he just pawned everything he owned in that place. I don't know if are the pictures of the people blocking the photos on your screens also?
No,
No. I guess I could close it here. There's a way I could close it. So.
the people are
There
at
we
the
go.
top of our screens. Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Oh yeah. All right. Let's go back here. Lots of tire shops, as you know, on Nolensville Road. What was, oh, there was a great coffee shop on Nolensville Road for a little while that had a T-shirt that said, oh yeah, come for the tires, stay for the food. Because there's so much great food on Nolensville Road and so many tire shops. I love the deco design of this place. And yet another taqueria. Okay, we're in France. So in I guess 2021, Liz and I started thinking about moving for a lot of reasons. I'm sure you all know, once that damn show Nashville started, people started coming to Nashville in droves, and like 100 people a day, and it seemed to be getting a little crowded for us. what with COVID and not knowing when it was going to let up, a lot of what was appealing to me about Nashville, playing music, seeing music, wasn't really available. We started thinking about other places in the United States we could move, but nothing really appealed. Every place was either too expensive or the weather wasn't right. But and in a more positive sense, Liz had always wanted to live in France. I love France and Europe in general. We have friends in England. We wanted to travel more, and it would have been really expensive to fly back and forth a lot. So we said, why don't we just move over there? So we sold our house, and we did. Um, and you know, Actually, as long as you can see me, I'm going to open this up. What did I do? What have I done? Am I still there? Is the
You're
screen?
here and we're
Is it
seeing your photo.
okay? All right. So yeah, so we moved over there in 2022. And France is just been turned out to be the perfect choice, especially as a photographer, because France is a photography country. I mean, they still have magazine stands and they have photography magazines, celebrating photographers on the stands. Almost every town and city we went to had a photography exhibit as we were traveling around. I mean, we went to Avignon, which everybody goes to for the bridge, and the Palais de Pop, but the Palais de Pop had a huge Sebastião Salgado exhibit as we were on the day we got there. And so we finally settled in Nîmes, partly because it's a half an hour from Arles, which has one of the biggest photography festivals in the world every year. And we've been 2, 3 times to that at this point. It's 3.5 hours from Paris by train for Paris Photo in November. And they just respect photography. I mean, people will stop their cars if they see I'm taking a picture and let me take the picture sometimes. And they will definitely stop walking if they see I'm taking a picture. So it really seems to be the place to be. Um, so when we decided to settle in Nîmes. We lived kind of on the other side of the tracks in a working class neighborhood with more modern buildings, meaning, 20th century buildings, not 18th and 17th century buildings. And I started walking around the neighborhood, and I was really into taking pictures of the doors and windows of the locale because I still saw, something I didn't see in America, kind of texture to the walls and a style of things that I wasn't seeing. And it seemed call the project Portals because it looks into people's abodes and garages and things like that. So now let me see. No, this isn't gonna work. I gotta wait. I'm sharing this. I seem to have done something horrible. One second.
Oh,
Let me.
we'll figure it out.
One second. No, because I can't seem to now. I can't seem to go through the photos anymore. Let me hit escape here. Oh, come on. Let me turn share off for a second.
Yeah, that might work.
Let's hit share again. Okay, it's paused. Okay.
We didn't see you stop sharing if you need to totally
Yeah.
stop sharing.
Yeah, okay.
There we go. Oh, good. Look, some more folks have arrived. Welcome, Kimberly. I see you.
Oh, thank you. All right.
Liz made it in. Liz Ross.
Oh, she did. Okay. So let me get rid of
Yep.
that. And I'll try this again. How are we doing on time?
We're doing great.
Okay.
We're doing great. This is fascinating.
All right.
There we
So
go.
here's another set of doors and windows. A lot of the windows, because it's a city, the ground floor windows have these gates on them, but they're a lot more attractive than the gates we used to have in New York. And
Mhm.
as an example, this could just as easily work in the Human Nature Project. As an example of nature behind bars. This is near an Indian restaurant in Nîmes. This is in a little town that's Saint-Quentin de la Poterie, which is has like 12 or 13 pottery ateliers and stores. But I just saw this and, obviously it stopped me in my tracks. There's a lot of these wavy grates on the windows.
Mm.
This was in our old neighborhood, and I just love the juxtaposition of the old door with the modern lock system. And I love these curtains. We're currently in the process of having someone try and find some for our kitchen, something like that. This is the quay near our house, which is a canal that runs from kind of the center of the city to the Jardin de la Fontaine, which is an amazing, huge, beautiful garden area with, as you might suspect, a fountain. But this fit in the door, the portal thing. I have no idea where that door goes or went, but I like it. More windows from our old neighborhood. These are the buildings that were in some of the buildings were in our old neighborhood, and I thought they had their own beauty. They don't immediately strike you as something, that you want to take a picture of, but, with a little zhuzhing, they came out really nice. There were a lot of garages like this. If you're wondering, défense de stationner means don't park here. This was right by our house. I passed it all the time on the way to the boulangerie, the bakery. This was in the village we stayed in the first winter, had these, I guess we didn't, a lot of these little villages pretty much shut down in the winter, so there was nobody there, but I guess they got a lot of visitors in the summer, so they have bathrooms available for them. And that's another. So let me see. What do I want to do? Okay. Oh yeah, and this is that town. Liz and a friend of ours who were visiting wanted to go see these windmills, but I spotted as soon as we got into town, there were signs for, I don't know if you can see it, but it says photo. Back in this garden back there, there was a photo exhibition in a little town in France. So I was over that while they went to see the mills. So also in our old neighborhood, I started shooting through car windows. I mean, it could technically become part of the Portal project or another project, but people hang various things from their windshield, their rear view mirrors in France. A lot of different fascinating things show up inside their windshields, behind their windshields. But part of it was just also trying to learn how to manipulate color and some saw lighter influence in that in terms of trying to get almost an abstract expressionist feeling going along with the figurative nature of whatever's hanging. Like you never know what you're going to see hanging. I have no idea what some of this stuff is, but I just love the colors and the inventiveness and that these days when cars all look virtually identical, it may be a way of people defining them. Our car, our Peugeot, there have to be hundreds of them in Nîmes, and we've often walked to the wrong car. I eventually hung something on our rearview mirror just so I would know it's our car. But I love, the buildings reflections in the windows and tree reflections in the windows. And some of these things are deodorizers, but a lot of them are not. They just things people hang.
That is such a totally cool series, Michael.
Oh, thank you. And sometimes they just have those little seed balls, which we see all over France. Now I love the combination of a sneaker and that kind of spiritual hand. And once again, I picked these out, kind of randomly from the shots I have, but it's an ongoing project and eventually I have probably maybe close to 100 now, but when I get up to like 200 or 300, I'll pick out the best and maybe do a book. So last October, I was lucky enough to get accepted to a workshop in Bristol, England. It was at the Martin Parr Foundation. If you don't know Martin Parr, he is one of the most famous British photographers ever. He's kind of like the British Bruce Gilden almost. He takes a really jaundiced look at English society and takes these really brightly colored. He works mostly in color and brightly colored pictures of, unsparing pictures of various classes in England.
Be quiet.
And he was sponsoring a workshop by Trent Park, who is an Australian photographer, an amazing Australian photographer. And interestingly, when I did my mentorship with James Mayer, he remarked that a couple of my photos reminded him of Trent Park. At the time, I had no idea who that was, and then I looked him up, and I was suitably flattered. And when I saw that he was giving a workshop, and Martin Parr was going to be involved as well, it was 2 days in Bristol. I said, we had to go. So we spent a couple of days in London, went to Bristol, did the workshop and came back, spent a couple of days in London and came back to France. But at the workshop was life-changing. Trent Park's a rock star. He's just got that energy. He's got that commitment. He and his wife drove all over Australia in a van for 2 years, just taking pictures. And his latest book is just spectacular. And Martin Parr, participated in the workshop as well. And it was just it inspired me to push myself further. I'd already started doing the color work with the car windows, but we were sent out to take pictures. One of the projects was take pictures there was a capsule sent into space with photographs in it years ago, and they said, try and take some pictures that would be sent in the next capsule into space. And frankly, I just blew that whole assignment. I just was not feeling inspired. I had no idea what to shoot. My back was hurting. My feet were hurting. I just didn't take too many great pictures, but I took these pictures of a canal, and I didn't even realize those were contrails at the time, but I liked the way they looked in the canal. And I took that one and this one and proffered those up. And those led, when I came back to France, to my taking another look at the Quai and the water in there and the way the light worked and the reflections and things like that. But before I really got into that, also the Quai has lots of fish in it. It has koi in it, but it also pushed me. I could take pictures of them, but the pictures don't look like this when you take the picture. But I was inspired between the windshield work and the workshop to push the color, and I started learning how to use it, and I updated my Nik collection and started working with Nik color effects so that I could get the feeling of those fish, not the way they actually looked, but the way it feels when you see them swimming around like that, or in black and white. I did this one in black and white because the duck with the fish I found amazing, but he got lost when you started doing it in color. So I turned this one into black and white.
No, you can't go up there. You have to stay.
But, part of the reason that they start milling around altogether is because people throw bread in the Quai, and unfortunately the breadcrumbs start, a lot of times I have to individually, cut the breadcrumbs out of the picture. But here they were so fine, it looked more almost like stars or something. I thought it worked. Left it. So the other aspect of the Quai is it reflects what's going on above the Quai, and those reflections to me, started representing pretty much almost every genre of painting that's ever existed. I mean, this one reminds me of a Franz Klein, those big black brush strokes. And so kind of seemed to work best in black and white with the massive, and, there could be elements of the Japanese thing aesthetic in it also. But when you start pushing the color and pushing the clarity, then they start really taking on the aspect of just abstract paintings and endless abstract paintings because it's endlessly changing. Some are like this; they look kind of jewel-like. Some look more impressionistic like this, leading me to think, maybe some of the French impressionists just looked into the canal or a canal near them and saw something like this and said, "Oh, I could paint like that," and came up with Impressionism. Voila. Um, this has more like almost like a Egon Schiele look to it, more Impressionism, more jewel-like look to it. This to me looks like a Jean Dubuffet, if you're familiar with him. It looks like one of his little men with the eye. Um, and just the possibilities are endless. I can manipulate the color like any way I want. I turn this into with Color Effects Pro, I can turn this into like it has a Japanese feel to it. This one too. This feels to me more like Francis Bacon, if you're familiar with his paintings, something about the shapes. And so I push the colors kind of in that direction. And finally, this one, I don't know what I like about this one. I just like it. And yeah, here's another kind of Egon Schiele. The clouds will add something sometimes.
No.
Now we get to this, and we're coming up on the end here. When the wind blows on the K, it makes another kind of abstract that seems to work in black and white. And it also, I can stand there and just keep shooting from second to second and have completely different images and of the same thing. And as I've learned, photography is about time, um, as well as everything else. And showing these pictures back to back, which I may eventually either, do an exhibit of them back to back or do a book with a bunch of them in a row, gives me a sense of time passing, in a way that only photography can do. And speaking of time, I think that's probably enough time if we want to get to some questions. So um, that's it. And thanks again for having me.
Oh, wow. Okay, so I'm gonna unmute, everybody unmute yourself so you can chime in. Uh, and I guess, Michael, if you will stop sharing, we might, well, then we may want to refer to
Yeah,
these. We may want
there
to
we go.
refer to some of those photos. Uh, but wow, what a journey and what a progression from the inherited point and shoot to these wonderful photos you're creating now. Anybody got particular questions come to mind or comments?
No, nobody.
No. Well,
Uh,
I
I
have
guess I covered
some.
everything.
You covered everything. Absolutely. Things were so cool. I wanted to comment on the Nolensville Road photos and ask if you knew the photographer Tommy Kha, Kha.
No, I don't. But is he the one that runs the Instagram thing of Nolan? Somebody runs in Nolensville
No,
Road.
no, no, no. Tommy Kha is a uh, Memphis photographer,
Okay.
and I look him up. I've heard a wonderful interview with him on a podcast a few days before he was supposed to be in Memphis. So I went down to Memphis to see his work. And there's something about uh, he describes himself as a queer Southeastern immigrant, first generation, or maybe second generation, uh, Memphis, I mean, he's just got all these facets to him that come out in this wonderful use of color and vernacular that I think you might enjoy.
Yeah, I'll check them out.
Yep.
Was that KHA?
KHA, Tommy
Okay.
Ka.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I felt like, I mean, I heard people gasping before I put everybody on mute because we had certain cats and so forth coming coming through. But some of these photos just really jumped out at a lot of people, and maybe people want to talk about what you were uh, what
Yeah, I'd be
resonated.
curious what people responded to.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, s- I love that Ferris wheel one in that Nolensville series and the church on the Nolensville Road.
No,
And
the Ferris wheel was part of the Human Nature series. That because that's
yeah,
in name. Yeah.
Yeah, I liked that one, and I liked the bird, the
The
small.
bird.
I think there was a small bird in the tree. Maybe I'm thinking about a different
Oh
one.
yeah, he was. You know, there was. I think there's a bird in the Ferris wheel.
And for some reason, I that sort of made the picture for me. That tiny little bird in the tree.
Yeah, well, thanks. Yeah, that's I don't know if there's a book Camera Lucida, and I'm spacing on the author's name. He's French, and he talks about thing called a punctum in photography, which is
yeah.
a tiny little something that in the photograph that makes the difference and that adds something to it. And some photographs have that, and yeah, I think it would be a very different photograph without it.
The punctum idea, there was I'm glad you reminded us of that. That there were several of your photos where it was just like the gesture, I was going to call it. There was just something that set it apart that without that it would have been a photo that maybe we've seen, but then there's this new kind of a little expression or angle or lighting um, that really um, made the photo.
Well, yeah, thanks. I mean, yeah, I mean, I have so much work. I mean, I tried to put it into kind of categories. I thought that would be a good way. And that's what I'm trying to do is, that's part of the editing process that I was talking about of just, finding the stuff that has that special thing in it that's not, um, that makes it special and makes it me, I read a great quote once, I don't know if it was in a photography book, but it said something about, um, the best stuff is not the best of its kind, it's the only of its kind.
Oh, whoa, that's a high bar.
Yeah, well, that is the
Oh,
bar though. I mean, if you think
yeah,
about the photographers we love, I mean, if I can't look at a photograph and say, oh, that's a Todd Hido photograph, or that's a Trent Park photograph, or that's a Martin Parr photograph. I mean, that is the bar. It's, if I mean,
yeah.
if I don't know how much time you folks spend on Instagram, but if you go on Instagram, everything looks the same. I mean,
Mhm.
it's especially street photography. It's like, I mean, a notable exception. I love Michael. Is it Michael Raynaud? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
three names or two names? I'm not sure. But
He goes by all three sometimes, yeah.
yeah, well, I love his stuff. I mean, but like the Gay Pride Parade, he's shooting fish in a barrel. It's it's now apparently downtown Nashville is Halloween every day. And, it's
Right.
but he's a great photographer. I mean, he's technically great and he captures great stuff. He's got a great eye. But but a lot of the stuff I see, what passes for street photography is it's just, oh, I shot people on the street. It's like, okay, but
Yeah.
or the other things I see is like there's two types of street photography. They talk about hunting and fishing. Hunting is when you follow something interesting around and try and capture it and work it. Fishing is when you just stand in a place with some interesting light and wait for people to walk through it. And there's a lot of fishing, where you see, oh yeah, that's an interesting piece of light and somebody walked through it. But I don't know, you know, it's, I mean, what
Right.
about that picture couldn't anyone in the world have taken if they stood there long enough? I mean,
Yeah.
it's fine. I mean, anything anybody wants to do with photography is great, I mean, um, but what I'm trying to do is, and it's the same thing. The nicest thing anybody ever said about my guitar playing is, the wife of a guitar player I was doing a gig with came up to me afterwards and say, "You play just like you are," and
Ah,
and
nice.
that's what I want to. That's what I want the
Yeah.
photography to be. That's what ultimately I want somebody to look at it. And I also took a class with Phil Penman. I don't know if anybody knows him, but he was a paparazzi for years, but has become a really famous street photographer. And he's a Leica ambassador. And I took a thing with him, and I forgot where I was going with this, but. Um,
You play just like you are.
Yeah, well, I mean, oh yeah, as we worked together and I started working with the Nick collection, I started processing, some of the black and white stuff. He said, yeah, you're starting to get a look, that looks,
Ah,
like you. Because, obviously everybody can use that processing and many really, famous and successful photographers do. But if you use presets, that's what Ralph Gibson is always complaining about, is that, that everybody, everybody takes pictures with their phone and everybody looks the same because they all use the same presets,
mm.
and then you're going to end up using the same. And I never like presets. I never like presets in music. The parallels between music and photography were just astounding the more I do it. I watch so many videos by photographers, YouTube, but where there's a guitar in the background. Somebody's got a guitar in the background, and there's the parallel of, there are musicians who play and are, concerned in doing the art. And then there's all these YouTube channels by guys who just all they want to talk about is the gear,
The
and
gearheads. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, the
yeah.
gearheads. And it's the same in, with music also. There's people who, and it's great. It's an industry. It's an industry that kept me in breakfast cereal for years because that's what I wrote about. I wrote about gear for magazines, and that's, it is an industry. But in terms of, shooting and making work, the gear is way down the scale on, the list of things that are important. It's, but yeah, as I said, now the next hurdle is, well, doing the work, getting out as much as possible, but also starting to edit stuff and really being ruthless with it, looking for stuff that really at least approaches that bar that I was talking about that's in all those books and all the photographers I love. And that looks, that I feel looks like me. That's not always something I can judge for myself. So I'm hoping to dragoon Liz into this process at some point. And
Yes, it's always good to get somebody else's uh, feedback, uh, whether you're lucky enough to be married to somebody with a good eye like Liz, or have some, group to bounce things off of. Uh,
Well,
I
even
s-
famous photographers will hire an editor, to go through their work and pick out the stuff because they're too close to it. It's the same as,
yeah,
a movie director. Most movie directors do not edit their movies. They hire an editor to edit their movies because they're too close to it. They need somebody to say, and it's the same thing with music producers. I mean, I've done some music producing. I once flew out to San Francisco to produce this one, help her with a record, and she played me the tracks that they had and everything. And there was a whole section of a song. I said, you don't need this section in the song, but they had worked on it for so long and were so close to it that they thought, oh, it had to be there. But no, just somebody coming in and listening says, no, that doesn't have to be there. And somebody coming in and looking at your work will see things that you don't see, and we'll see. So at some point, that may be another step when I'm ready. I mean, when I'm ready to do a book, I may see about hiring an editor to help me go through, the photographs and decide what's going to go in.
Yeah, because you'll have a reason to love every single one you propose, or you wouldn't be proposing it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, I hopefully will have gotten to that point. I mean, it's becoming easier and easier to throw stuff in the trash,
Yeah.
I mean,
Oh, well,
but
not
it's
all the way in the
also,
trash. Don't put
well,
it all the way in the
I
trash. Put
know
it
that's
over.
all
Yeah.
also dangerous. I know
Yeah. Yeah.
because
Yeah.
you can go back to something, and I have. I mean, going just for this this talk, I went back through a whole bunch of archives, and I was looking at stuff
You see it
that
with a different eye now, and you process it differently.
yeah, oh, definitely processing it differently. I mean, I've learned so much about processing, and it's so much apart, when I finally realized that, I mean, I didn't realize all those old film photographers, none of that was the way it came out of the camera. Ansel Adams, what came out of the camera was just the beginning of those photographs,
Yeah.
you
Yeah,
know?
we got to dodge and burn and crop. And I want to go back to your parallel between music and the visual arts, because and when I'm looking now, I'm more my guilty pleasure is buying photography books that are not like the how-tos, but that are stories that people have come up with. And I'm trying to understand more about sequencing. And I was in a workshop a couple of weekends ago where very simply, there's three kinds, and I forget what he calls each one, three kinds of ways that you can group your photos. And one is like AAAA, like the series that you showed us of the looking through the uh, car windows,
Yeah.
things hanging, those are all the same, but they're not. And so the trick is to have the AAAA type of thing. It can really work. And I used to be a little more less interested in that, I should say. But now I see the AAAA thing can work. Okay, the second thing is A, B, C, D, E, sort of a logical sequence. You're getting closer, you're going through time, you're going far away. There's some kind of through line that is setting up the A, B, the sequence from A to Z, whatever you're doing. And the third one is where I really feel like there's music involved, where it's sort of the syncopated thing where you've got little a, capital B, capital C, little D, E, and then another
Well, that's
A.
interesting.
And a,
Yeah. Yeah. I never heard it put like that. I mean,
so I feel like, yeah, the music, I mean, when you think about the rhythms in music and you think about rhythms in some of the stuff you're doing, and you go back to what you said you were learning earlier about things can be metaphors and things can fit in, like that one project, the Human Nature Project, when you have that close up of the tree trunk with the
yeah,
with the
barbed wire.
wire. So there's metaphor things that can be kind of put in like the little, if you're thinking like punctums. I mean, punctum in a photograph, punctums between photographs. I
Oh,
can't wait to
there's
hear what you think more about that kind of an angle, the sequencing and music and rhythms.
Yeah, it's interesting because Trent Park told us that he edited his latest book to Max Richter, I think, who's a great composer. I love his stuff, and it's so funny that he mentioned that because he's one. I just love his composing, and it made kind of sense because it's very romantic, and so are Trent's photographs on a certain level are very romantic. But there's so many ways to do a book. I mean, there's I mean, if you're doing opposite pages, it's how the pages speak to each other if there are photographs on both pages. I mean, I was just looking through to the last couple of days the latest Todd Hido book, and
Oh
if
yeah,
you've
yeah.
never seen his work, it's just spectacular. But I mean, it's like trying to figure out what he's doing in that because most of them are big it's a really big book and big pages of those gorgeous photos he does through the car windows with the droplets of rain and all that kind of stuff. But inside the book, he also puts, because all his stuff for him is about memory and his childhood and stuff like that. So there's an amazing little vellum booklet of transparent vellum with photographs on each page, but you see the photographs behind them. And these are all found photographs. These aren't ones he took. He collects, boxes of old found photographs and, at flea markets and stuff. And these are, I think, well, they're mixed in. They may be mixed in. Some of them are his family pictures, some of them are other people's family pictures, and they're all mixed together. I mean, if you want to compare it to music, it's like symphonic. And it's just a little, this little booklet in a book that's this big. And then on opposite one of the pages, he'll just have stuck on two little pictures like that. And so, that's one of the examples of like, I'm not sure what that's about, but then photographic books is such a big thing right now. I mean, if you, when we go to the Arles Festival, I mean, there's an entire room full of all the latest, photo books, and photo books of that sort are the new thing. It's just, how you put them together, and photo books as made objects, people sew them together and do it. I mean, there's so many ways you can do it. And so, I mean, I just bought, a little while ago, I bought, a notebook like this, and I have another project which I didn't show, which I'm going to be continuing next month. Near where we used to live is a town called Pézenas, and they have a Mardi Gras type festival every year where people wear all these amazing costumes like wolves but just, some people are dressed as shower stalls. I mean, but a group of people all dressed as shower stalls or sheep I mean, it's amazing. I mean, I've gone for 2 years and gotten some great photos. And so I've printed them out. Actually, I don't know if I just to give an idea. Everybody isn't bored to death already. I don't have. No, just pulling. Let me pull one that might show up. Something. So the tricky part with this is that France has very strict privacy laws. So, but most of the people are in masks. So I don't know if people can see that.
Huh.
Oh, fun.
And it just, that
Oh,
so, but what I was thinking,
that's
when I'm,
absurd.
oh, it's crazy. So what I'm, thinking about doing is taking this book and just pasting these in and seeing which ones work on opposite pages. And, that's one way that people do it. So, these are all projects. I mean, I need to get started on them, but because I ain't getting any younger, but I do want to, some photos are meant for books. Some photos seem more appropriate for framing and putting on the walls. So, but I do want to start doing books. And now you can do, books and zines. People do what are called zines, which are, maybe just stapled together. You can do them for, $5. You can have them printed.
Yeah, I was looking to see if I could put my hands on a zine I did recently, which I hand stitched, and it was so satisfying. It had cover and inside and stitching. Well, you are full of energy and doing some fabulous work, Michael. We may
Oh, thank
check
you.
back in with you in another year, or come see you, right?
Please, please, I recommend it to everybody.
When is that
uh,
Arles
uh,
thing that you're talking about?
That's
the show
that's in
with
the
the
summer. It
book.
starts. Yeah, it's all summer. I think maybe it starts in June through September. It goes all summer.
Ah,
Yeah, last
all
year
right.
they
Well,
had
watch out.
a Mary Ellen Mark exhibit that was just amazing.
Oh my gosh, yes, yes, yes.
And the year before that, they had a Saul Leiter black and white exhibit, and plus, all these people I've never heard of, and but it's just a photography town. I mean, in general, there'll be pop-up shows all year round, and we went back to meet some friends for lunch, and it wasn't during the festival, but there was a pop-up camera and lens sale in one of the shops,
Yeah.
one of the buildings. You just went in and there were also all sorts of cameras and lens for sale. So yeah, it's great being over here. I mean, it's daunting. I have so much more to learn and so much more work to do to get where I would like to get. But how's everybody else doing? Are
Yeah.
people taking pictures? I see Al's pictures, on Instagram. You're doing some good work, Al.
Thanks, I appreciate that.
Al's
Yeah.
one of the more prolific posters. Uh, and I think some of it is that you just are dedicated to, almost seems like you got to keep moving every day.
Yeah, well, that's why I signed up for Instagram, actually. I initially signed up for my personal account because it was just easier to post photographs on Facebook through Instagram rather than try and do it through Facebook. That's become easier, but then somebody told me, hey, you can have more than one account. So I started a photography account, and basically it's to keep me taking pictures. I mean, because I post the best of what I've got, and then okay, I need to go take more, and
Go away. Go
it
away.
helps. What's that?
I think Kay's talking to her cat.
I'm sorry. She won't leave me alone. She's not used to the competition.
Well, bring her into the
Oh, I just made her go
circle.
away.
No.
But she'll be back.
I probably don't shoot as much as
Here she comes.
consistently as I should.
Yeah.
I seem to shoot in bursts. I like last about a week ago, I went to a demonstration and shot some pictures, some I guess street photography, which I'm not really used to. Um, so it was a protest or a demonstration, and so was something that I'd never done before.
That's
So
it's great to get out of your comfort zone. And I mean, I do a fair amount of street photography in Nîmes. As I was saying, I don't know if I can ever use it for anything because of the privacy laws, but
right,
it's hard. I mean, I never
yeah,
did street photography in America, and I just started doing it over here. And it's technically hard,
yeah,
just to be able. But that was one of the fun things about doing that Mardi Gras festival. That was
mhm,
like being in a war zone. I mean,
No.
people are spraying each other with
yeah,
they're spraying each other with shaving cream, and you got to keep from getting that on the camera. And I'm amazed I got the shots I did because I was
yeah,
relatively new to street
yeah,
photography, and that's shooting manual with the 50 millimeter.
mhm, yeah,
But it's hard. And then
yeah,
there's the personal aspect of it too. How close do you get in people's
right,
faces? And
yeah. Well, like I was curious about the
you
privacy
know,
laws. Like if
that kind of
you're
stuff. So
at an event where the whole point of people being there is to be seen, like at a protest or I
yeah.
mean, what's the rule then? Like, is it
I
different?
don't think in America, I think in America, yeah, in America, if you're just out in public, I
Yeah, I
think in
know.
America, the rule
Yeah,
is if you're out in
right.
public space.
Yeah,
So
right. But I
I don't
mean,
know
like
about in
in
France though.
Europe,
Yeah.
I know that the rules there are much more strict. But if,
Yeah.
if you're at an event there where the point is people are out and the point is to be seen and maybe
Exactly.
to be photographed,
Yeah.
uh, I don't know.
No, it's probably fine. I mean, it's and then it comes down to what you use it for. Obviously, if they're using it in a newspaper or magazine, it's one
Mhm.
thing. And just in general, I think even in America, you can use the photos in a book, you can use it in an art show, but if you use somebody's photo on a poster to advertise the art show, or
Right.
if you use it to sell a product, you need to get permission.
Yeah.
But as long as somebody's in public,
Mhm.
but it's just fun. It's a great exercise. I'm sure, I mean, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. And as I said, Nashville's turning into Halloween all the time. So there's
Yeah.
so many great people to
Yeah.
photograph.
Yeah.
Michael, I want to go back to, you said that the workshop you did with Trent Park in
Yeah.
Bristol was life-changing.
Yeah.
And then you showed a couple of examples of photos you took before the workshop. I'm not sure that I know how it has affected your current practice.
Well, no, I took those couple of the one with the contrails. I took those during yeah, it affected my current practice in just pushing me to get out there and shoot as much as possible and really be as committed as possible to taking pictures. But also to not be afraid to just push the envelope, like with the K pictures, pushing them pushing the color, not being afraid to just process the hell out of them to get what I want to get out of them.
Mhm.
The challenge I'm working at with them is something interesting that Todd Heido learned from Larry. What was his name? Larry
Sullivan?
Sullivan was one of his teachers, and it's about getting up as close to sentimentality without crossing the line.
Oh, I love that. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
When I start doing those, I mean, people tend to love those color photos. People love color. They love bright colors. But, I just want to make sure it's not just about bright colors. It's
Right.
that there's something else going on there, and just trying to find that line of, making it into what I want to see. And, I mean, I mean, yeah, it's just a balancing act. But what I got from that, and other things too. I mean, when I showed them my Pezanos Mardi Gras photos, and it was fascinating because Trent Park said, "Oh, I want to see everybody in a mask. I don't want to see any pictures of people without masks." And
Ah, uh,
Martin Parr said, "Oh, I want to see more people without masks." So
yeah.
here you have two, world famous photographers who disagree about the direction it should go. So, which was
Yeah, yeah.
that's the lesson right there. That
That's
okay,
freeing, isn't it? That's kind of
yeah.
freeing.
And as we suspected, much of it is subjective.
Yeah, and where you find my line is going to be different from your line. When you got too close to sentimentality, uh, but keeping that distance, that's fascinating. Okay.
Yeah,
Any, I see we're those of you who are expecting 1 hour, we're 15 minutes beyond. Those who are expecting an hour and a half, we have 15 more minutes. I think we're at possibly a place to break, but I want to make sure everybody's had a chance to bring up any last thoughts you might have or questions for Michael.
I just think this was amazing, and I'm very glad that you could do it, Michael. And I apologize for my very noisy cat who's climbing all over my computer at the moment. Quietly, but
everyone's
she's
welcome.
Can we
still here.
your cat?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, and finally, there's Liz.
Yay, Liz.
I've been here all along. I just had my picture off.
Have you been lurking?
Yeah. I want to see Kay's cat.
Well, now she just went in the other room. Probably she heard you say that. She said, "Nah."
She's a true cat. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
because she's
Yeah.
a cat. Yes.
If she comes back, and she probably will, I'll pick her up.
Dogs have masters, cats have servants.
Yeah, I thought I was special, but I'm not. She is. It's her house.
Ah,
You have any questions, Liz?
I'll ask you later.
Okay.
yeah. Carl,
I-
anything?
No,
My favorite picture,
I enjoyed it.
I loved them all, but my favorite one was the one with the Ferris wheel.
Oh,
As
yeah.
I think Wayne said too.
Yeah.
With the little punctum of the bird. Yeah, that was
Yeah,
great.
that was just awesome.
Hmm.
But they all were.
Oh,
Thank you so much, Michael.
So you
Yeah.
may have to build a project where that's featured. I
Yeah.
don't know. No, see, that's what we
Oh,
do.
I have
We're
tons
like,
of
oh, we
pictures of
love
that
that
Ferris
one.
wheel.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
have lots of pictures of those, lots more pictures of that Ferris wheel, but not like that. I mean, the ghostly aspect of it in the background.
Yeah,
That's something
that
to
was
put.
it, was the ghostly aspect of it.
Yeah, yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. It's
Nature.
difficult to conjure that up all the time, but the light was right, the direction. But I take lots of pictures there. I love that tree. That tree that was in front of it is right next to the arena, and it's a great tree. So I'm still, you just keep shooting, and eventually something turns up.
Something. Well,
Yeah.
you've got more than your fair share of wonderful things turning up, and I look forward to seeing more of your work on Instagram as we uh, can. Oh, we had a question. I'm sorry, just now. Can you talk a little bit about your processing, mostly Lightroom or using Photoshop extensively, and how you get the brilliant colors in the water in the later photos?
Oh, that. Well, sure. Yeah, I mean, that is relatively new. Like I said, I've been using the Nik collection. I've been using the Silver Effects Pro for years, but it never worked quite right, especially once I mean, the Silver Effects worked, but the other ones didn't work when I first got the whatever the latest Mac processor is and the version. So I finally bit the bullet and bought the new version, and now I can use them all. And I started working with Color Effects Pro, and it's just, I mean, it's a process. I start in Capture One. I load all my photos into Capture One, and I'll start the initial process in that, and maybe do a little sharpening there and do a little clarity and all that kind of stuff, and even work some with the color there. And then I will put it into Color Effects Pro, and they have a heightening thing that really brings out all the shapes of the water, and also tends to darken it and build up the saturation a little bit. And I'll do more sharpening there. And then you can take a little eyedropper and just put it on whatever color you want, and it'll choose whatever that color range is. But then you can go to the hue. And for a lot of the colors, if you move the hue, it'll completely change the color. So like the Japanese style ones that I have, uh, that color bears no resemblance to what the K looked like, but I was able to pull out something there and turn it into that color. And then for the car window ones, a lot of times it's more subtle. Then from there, I'll always go into Affinity Pro because their color balance tool really is much subtler but can do really, when I'm dealing with color that's maybe not so extreme, especially, but when I talked about trying to get the emotion of the color out, that really, it's amazing. Just a little bit of, you can adjust the shadows, the midtones, and the highlights, and each one has three sliders, like, red, purple, blue, yellow, whatever. And just a little bit of motion in any of those sliders can just change the feeling of the photo. So, pretty most of the time I'll be using all three,
What was
until
the third one?
Affinity Pro.
Affinity Pro.
Affinity.
Well, and it's the process is that you, say you start in Capture One, move to Color FX
Yeah.
Pro, and then sometimes to Affinity Pro. But what you're describing, there are those tools and sliders in Lightroom and Photoshop,
Yeah, you can do a lot of the
but
same stuff.
you're do you just skip Lightroom and Photoshop altogether and just use
Well,
the?
I don't have either one of them basically because I don't want to buy a subscription. You know,
Gotcha.
I was able to buy Affinity Pro. That's the first one I bought. I could buy it outright. I could buy Capture One outright, and I could buy,
Gotcha.
you know, and I could buy the Nick collection outright. I mean, you know, you have to pay to upgrade it sometimes. But you know, a lot of the upgrades, I mean, now it's all about AI and that kind of stuff. I did upgrade Capture One, and their AI masking works pretty well. So you can use, I mean, I watch a lot of instructional videos where they do Lightroom or Photoshop. A lot of the stuff you can do the same stuff. And the funny thing is, the same tools with the same name in different processors will react differently, you know. So it's I mean, there are things like Nick, you know, Nick Silver Effects will do to black and white with the average white and average black that I cannot get it to do in any other you know, I'll just up the whites and average white, and all of a sudden there's all this beautiful whites without burning it out, without, you know, without washing it out. It just lifts all the lights. It just does something. And the same thing with the blacks. It does average blacks. It does something. It's part of their contrast section. And it's something that you cannot do, or I cannot do with contrast. You might be able to do it if you really worked with curves in one of those processors, but it'll be a lot more work. And I don't know. They just all do something slightly different, probably because of their engines, you know, and their software. And so I just find the thing in each one that does, you know, that creates the effect. I mean, I'm looking for a feeling, I'm looking for an effect, and if I don't get it in one, I move on to the next, you know. But they are, you know, they're also inspirational tools. I mean, you know, I think without color effects, I would not be able to create those abstracts, you know, quite the same way in in the abstracts from the K, and you know, just wouldn't come out the same. So you know, it's still a process trying to figure out how to use it and not abuse it, and you know,
Yeah,
find.
that's the fun.
But
That's very,
the revelation in the at the workshop, one of the revelations from the workshop was that it really, I've always felt that I'm trying to make it look like I feel like it felt, not like it looked. But I've always thought, well, but I have to maintain, you know, try and maintain some reality to it, you know, or make it look like it could
right,
have come out
right.
of the camera that way. And then I realized, no, I don't, there's no rules, you know, I can just push it as far as I want to push it and do whatever I want to push it. I mean, I heard Todd Hido talking. I mean, he talks about he shoots like a documentarian and he prints like a painter.
Yes,
And
I love that.
and you look at his photograph, I mean, there's none of that came out of the camera. I mean, that didn't come out of the camera like that. He's some, you know, he's worked his color processing. He knows how to process that color to get these amazing, you know, some of the stuff looks very green, some of it looks very red, some of it looks has these gorgeous cyans and things like that. And they just look amazing. And but it didn't come out of the camera like that. And you know, it just that's but hearing stuff like that, you know, sometimes you need that to get permission.
Kind of freeing. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
freeing to say I can do this. And so who knows where it'll lead, you know. I just keep pushing it farther and farther, and at some point you know, I'll find what really feels like me.
That is what we're all searching for. I find this very helpful. And Snap folks, we ought to probably let other Snap people do a spotlight where we can look at the whole body of work in a leisurely fashion on maybe another Saturday, you know, in this summer. Or I don't know that we've got very many Saturdays we can devote to such things, but Wayne, maybe that's something we could consider doing. And what a great way to start it off. Thank you, Michael
Yeah.
Ross.
Well, thank
Yeah.
you, Emily. Thank you. And thank you
Uh,
all. And thank you all for the support. And, while we were in Nashville, which kind of kickstarted this whole thing. I should probably run because I smell the pizza's almost ready. It's dinner time.
Okay.
Lunch.
Great to
Have
see
a
you all.
Great
And
day and evening, everybody. Thanks for
Bye.
joining. Good to see you, Liz.
You
And
too.
Bye, Michael.
thanks,
Bye,
everybody.
Liz.
Bye.
Bye.
Picture of the kitty.